Hello everyone, so in this video I'd like to share my Sea of League Season 1 regional competition, and I attended the North York Season 1 regional competition of the Mirror Cup, for the Mirror Cup, and then so this is the first round of my match. So for the first round of the match, I didn't manage to record my first two matches, and then I only managed to record a portion of my last my last game of so in the first, so this is my first round, and then I had two games and I didn't manage to record the first game, and this is the second game, and my opponent was Holden McGraw, and I lost there because basically Brown Zone is actually quite bad. So the reason why I chose Brown Zone was because my brother told I misheard that my brother told me Brown Zone can defeat Azumarill, but actually the fact is the other way. So Brown Zone is actually just super bad and just stupid, and the major failure was contributed by using Browzone, so just don't use Browzone. And my opponent's team is actually unique because he has Jirachi, but actually he didn't really use it, just put Jirachi there. And I don't think he used Bastiodon as well. But anyway, I just don't want to comment too much about that. I just want to mention the lesson I learned from my first round failure was never use Browzone. Just never use Browzone. Don't let Browzone 2 occur in your team. Replace it by Probopass would be much better. And I will also mention why choosing Probopass is actually a good choice when I analyze my third round match. So let's go to the second round. Okay, so my second round match. Before I start showing you my second round match, I'd like to analyze the team. So my opponent's team is also unique, Blaffen. He used Infernape and Abomasnow. So Abomasnow is actually bad to me. His Abomasnow actually is weak against my Charizard, and his Infernape is actually weak against my water type Pokemon. And he also used Alolan Golem, but Alolan Golem at 1500 CP is actually not quite strong because its maximum CP is super high. So at 1500 CP, Alolan Golem has a relatively low level, hence not that great in the game. And Victory Bell is actually good in using poison, but actually poison is, but Victory Bell is, but actually Azumarill does not really fear poison. So if like I use Azumarill, so actually I don't worry about its Victory Bell, and Victory Bell's Razor Leaf actually charges very slow. So I believe I can use my Azumarill's Ice Beam and I can just kill it. So in terms of team advantage, I think I actually have an advantage over his team. But again, at that time I didn't fully realize the weakness of Bronzong. So actually Bronzong almost killed me in this round. So let's see how the round went. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so the match starts, and I started with Medicham and then Swampert and Bronzong. So let's see how the Bronzong eventually became a killer to me. Okay, the match starts. My starter was Medicham, and he used Skarmory. So now I started using Ice Punch, because Ice is strong against flying. So I used Ice Punch. But actually Ice is weak against Steel, so actually a better choice I should have done was using Power Up Punch. So just a lesson you can learn. Ice is neutral against Skarmory, and use Power Punch more would be better. And now let's see here. Switching Pokemon is actually very not bad here, because if he switched to Victory Bell, then I can use Large Wave if he doesn't have a shield. However, he has shields. And actually, I believe his Infernape has counter as his charge move. So actually you can see Infernape doesn't really fear Swampert, even though Swampert my Swampert actually has a ground type charge move, but you can see Infernape just didn't really fear Swampert. Here I couldn't really say Bronzong performs super bad, but Bronzong just cannot handle Azumarill in that situation, for example. And actually, Browsome cannot deal with any fighting type move. So actually, Browsome is not a good choice because basically almost everyone would use Medicham. And here, even though this person doesn't have a Medicham, he has Infernape, and that is just terrible to my Browsome. And especially Browsome charge is not quick, and that is actually another disadvantage of Browsome. So now, at that moment, I realized Browsome was a bad choice, very bad choice. And I started thinking how I could choose Pokemon so that I can deal with his team. And now let's see how I switched. So I switched Browsome to Venusaur, and then I started using Charizard. And here, I was lucky that my Charizard caught his Skarmory, and he was forced to switch a Pokemon. And at this moment, I was able to use my Swampert to deal with his Infernape. And actually, Swampert charges very quickly, and the quick charging can just force my opponent to use his shields. And that's good to me because I really want my opponent to use up his shields first. Here, I was lucky that I could use the Hydro Cannon here. And even though it was not effective, Victreebel's defense was not super high. So basically, Hydro Cannon still took down Victreebel's lots of energy. And I predicted Victreebel couldn't really charge very quickly, so I didn't really use a Dragon Claw there, and I just saved my charged moves there so that I can deal with the next Pokemon. And here you can see if you have a Charizard and your Charizard can catch your opponent's Skarmory, then it means your Charizard would be very, very effective in that run. Okay, so after giving up Browsome, I eventually started getting victory. And the second round, I was thinking, okay, how I could use my team so that I can win the final game. And especially if my opponent predicts I would use Charizard as my starter again, then he could just use Azumarill, and that would be very bad to me. So I review his very unique team here and see how I could make up a team there. Oh, and by the way, I also need to apologize to my opponent actually because I mistakenly opened my cell phone light at one moment, and eventually my light was just keeping flashing his eyes, and he didn't really tell me. So here just apology to my opponent. And here I was right. He would use Azumarill first because he noticed I used Charizard as my starter in the last round, and in this case, just for safety, I used Swampert because Swampert charges very quickly, so it is not really very weak against Venusaur. Especially he doesn't have a Venusaur, he has Victory Bell, so I just don't fear its Victory Bell, so why not just starting with Swampert here. Here I just didn't want him to know which Pokemon I would use as my second Pokemon, and I really want to kill him first. But he used up, just at this moment I mistakenly clicked my camera flashlight, and he was in a trouble and he didn't really tell me, and I didn't really notice I mistakenly clicked that button. Abomasnow, here you can see the advantage of using Abomasnow is it has ice type charge move, and it can quickly take down Venusaur. But the bad thing was he didn't really have a shield, so it means when I start using a charge move, his Abomasnow can just be quickly taken down. And I still had a shield at that moment, even though I didn't really want to use it. And I just didn't believe I won again with such a big advantage. So that was a big win and a big comeback from my first game failure, and this was actually the first time ever I lost my first game in the round and then won the second and the third and made a successful comeback. So that was the first time ever I did it, so I was actually very excited at that moment. So let's see the third round match opponent. The third round match opponent was the strongest opponent in the tournament, even though he didn't win this tournament, but actually in terms of rank, he has the highest rank among all of the participants, and his team is unique in his Alolan Raichu. Psychic Alolan Raichu move can deal with Venusaur, and Electric can deal with flying. But I just want you to focus on his Skarmory and Tropius because he has two flying type Pokemon. If you have a Probopass, then it would be a very good very good thing, and I can just tell you at this moment, he actually used both of his Skarmory and Tropius in at least one of the games. So, when I was fighting against him, I was just keep regretting. I replaced my Probopass eventually with a useless Bronzong. So, if you have a Probopass and your opponent has 2 flying Pokemons, then consider using Probopass. It would be great. And he has Tropius. And actually in this moment, I should have kept using Charizard. But actually one mistake I had was, as you can see later. So 3, 2, 1, start. Let's see how the match went. Oh. Okay, so in this round, just learn from the second round. I noticed using Charizard as my starter was very effective. However, here I was wrong. He used Azumarill first, and I was in trouble. Actually, especially I don't know what happened there. Kind of a glitch. Couldn't believe it happened. And what I want to say is never use Dragon Claw to Azumarill. That's just useless. Basically using Charizard here was a total failure. So I should have started with Swampert, just learning from the third game of the second round. However, I didn't do that, and Azumarill was starting to use an Ice Beam, and I knew Venusaur won't lose there. He switched to Skarmory, so if I still had a Charizard, then that would be a good thing, but I just didn't have one. Very unfortunate. I blocked here, but I shouldn't really have blocked there, because I still need a shield for my Venusaur actually. But probably at that time I was thinking Venusaur didn't really have much energy left, so probably just keep my Swampert alive would be great. And I was trying to finish charging Sludge Bomb, but at the same time his Tropius managed to finish charging, and the game decided Tropius would make the first move. So I was actually very unfortunate there. Otherwise I might get some advantage back, but probably I would still not be able to turn the disadvantage around because I used Charizard. And here I think the biggest mistake was I switched Charizard to Azumarill and used 2 water plus 1 grass, and actually that was very bad because for example, all of the 3 if, for example, my Swampert matches with his Swampert, and that's an even match. But Azumarill and Venusaur would be weak against, for example, a Alolan Raichu. So I shouldn't really have done that, especially I also made another run mistake, switching Swampert into Medicham. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I made this decision. Okay, especially now, I also had a disadvantage using Azumarill here. If it were Swampert, it would be better actually. Just so bad at that moment. Especially Ice was neutral to flying type Pokemons. Here I shouldn't have. Yeah, I shouldn't have. I was right not blocking there, but he also actually managed to charge 2 charge moves, and I was forced to use a shield there, otherwise I would have died. But he also used a shield, but I was actually right in forcing him using a shield there. Here I should just let my Azumarill die probably, because even though I use a shield, I still think my Azumarill will die first. Oh, couldn't believe it happened. Just again at the same time we finished charging, and then he managed to get an advantage. He managed to make the move first. It is just a matter of luck. Yes, Venusaur was good, but Ice Beam was bad. He still had a shield, so basically he could just shield my Sludge Bomb there. Oh, but he didn't really do that. Even though he didn't really do it, it was kind of, I was doomed to fail because Venusaur was my last Pokemon, and I didn't manage to make Frenzy Plant. I didn't manage to use Frenzy Plant first. So that was actually the match. I would say the failure came from 2 sources. One was I didn't really use Probopass, and he was keeping using 2 flying type Pokemons. Couldn't believe it happened. And then, okay, so the match was over there, and let's see how the last round went. So my last round opponent was Alan E. Also a very strong opponent in the tournaments, and at my first glance I noticed he didn't really have a grass type Pokemon. So in the first round I used Water plus Grass plus Water and won that round, but I didn't manage to record the match And in the second round, I thought maybe he predicted I would use water plus grass plus water again. So three, two, one, go. So this is the second game of my fourth and also the last round. And let's see what I used. So I actually switched one water to Charizard, and actually that was just brutal to me because Swampert is strong against Charizard, and I was forced to switch there. And actually I switched my Pokemon at a good timing. However, his Skarmory was terrible. But the good thing was I finished charging Frenzy Plant at that moment, but it was actually not effective. However, I couldn't change my Pokemon there because I didn't reach the time of switching a Pokemon. And he didn't reach a time of switching Pokemon. Good, and I could have just used Blast Burn, but again, just the game didn't allow me to make the move first, and I was forced to waste all of my shields there just to make sure my Charizard would be alive. But probably I shouldn't have used my second shield because I didn't really think my Charizard would die by that move. Anyway, and a good lesson you can learn here is Blast Burn could cause a super big damage to Swampert, even though fire is not effective against Swampert. At this moment I was not happy because Swampert was my last Pokemon and he still had 2 shields. So at that moment I was just thinking, okay, I just let you win and then use water plus grass plus water again, and then see, just hopefully I can win my last game of my final round. That was the match there. At that time I was just considering if I should use water plus grass plus water, because that was kind of risky, right? Because his Probopass can just... Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. So his Probopass could just kill my water quickly, even though water is effective against Probopass. But anyway, I just decided to use Swampert first, and before the match I luckily won the rock, paper, scissors. So I have reason to believe that was a very critical thing in this game. So at the start of the game, it was Swampert against Swampert, so it is kind of a battle of which Swampert is better. So here I was right in taking the first damage, big charge damage, because I knew I wouldn't die. And here I was keeping using Hydro Pump. I have reason to believe he might miss a click, causing him to be late just one click later than me to use his charge move, if I'm not wrong. Here you can see Azumarill is actually very tanky. It can just take Skarmory's attack very well. I think he made a mistake of switching Skarmory into Azumarill because Skarmory was strong against Azumarill, right? I don't get why he switched Skarmory there. And just because he switched into Azumarill, I managed to use Venusaur. And actually Venusaur is defensive because it can take an Ice Beam without getting dead. And here, at this moment, both of us just had one Pokemon left, and at that moment, I almost finished charging Ice Beam, and then he used Sky Attack, and I thought, okay, my Azumarill will just die, but actually I didn't. So I was very surprised about how tanky Azumarill was. And at this moment, it was a battle of which one would just be win, and I just won by a mere amount of energy. That was just the closest match I have ever got. I just couldn't believe it happened to me, and the closest match I've ever done was won by me. So I was very, very happy about that. So eventually I won 2 out of 4 rounds. So I was very happy about the result, especially in this tournament. There are just so many strong trainers. There are 15 people participated the tournament, and actually 6 of them have a purple name, so they're super strong. And I have reason to believe any tournaments in Toronto is actually the most difficult ones in the Greater Golden Horseshoe area. Just because there are just so many strong trainers, and actually I very appreciate they could just have match with me, and I'm very happy that I could learn a lot from them, and learn a lot, and then become more and more experienced in those matches. And hopefully you learned from my last matches, and I would like you to take away a few lessons. First, don't use Brawlzone. It is just useless. Second, Probopass is actually a very good choice. If you have one, take it. Sableye, I would like to just briefly mention it. Sableye actually has a very low defense, so if you don't have a handle one, probably just don't have to use Sableye, because in the first game of my last round, my opponent actually used a Sableye, and just Swampert Hydro Cannon just almost killed Sableye. So, well, if your opponent doesn't really use Medicham in the game, then if you use Sableye, then probably that's a very bad thing. Even though everyone seems to have a Medicham in their team. I just see Medicham is often not actually used. Basically, people just take Medicham with them, and just hopefully to deal with a Probopass or Bronzong. But anyway, and use Azumarill instead of Wigglytuff would be better because according to my observation, most people using a Wigglytuff didn't really perform well in this tournament, but people who used Azumarill actually overall performed better than those using Wigglytuff without an Azumarill. So probably that was because Wigglytuff's defense was not very high, whereas Azumarill had a high HP and also defense. And especially, it is a water type, so it can deal with any it has Ice Beam. Even though Wigglytuff has Ice Beam as well, but just Azumarill compared to Wigglytuff not only has a lot of HP, but also is very tanky, much more tanky than Wigglytuff. So this is another lesson you can take away from the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully the video would help you get a better performance in your Mirror Cup Season 1 regional competition. And thank you very much for watching. Hope you subscribe, and see you next time.